get my 6. Welcome to the beautiful Ravenna River, somewhere in Albemarle County, Virginia. Can't give you specific locations because this is my favorite fishing hole and I don't want to ruin it. Got some pretty neat stories about this hole down here. One in particular that is amazing, one that defies logic, but one which shows anything is possible as long as you have vision and you never, ever, ever give up on your dreams. You never stop doing the work required to make your dreams become realities. With that said, there's no guarantee we're going to catch any fish today. After a 20-minute float downstream, we are at our favorite hole. Had to bank down there. It's a kayak, about 40 yards downstream. Then I brought my gear up here, set up, got the tripod there because I'm going to try to record some of this hot fishing action today. I couldn't bank here because only 2 feet in, the water drops down to about 6 feet. So I had to put it down there. But here's why this hole is so amazing. This is a very sharp turn in the river here, a bend. And it looks so calm on top, the water's barely moving. But you go 3 or 4 feet down and the current starts getting stronger. And over time, as the water has made this sharp turn right here, it's eaten an underground cave up underneath this rock cliff over here on the other side of the bank. These big boulders. I would estimate the water's about 20 feet deep down here, goes up underneath those rocks, and I have caught catfish down here between 3 and 4 feet long, so fat I couldn't get both hands around them, probably weighed 12 or 15 pounds. This is the spot. We're set up. We've got our worm-baited hook. Got a bunch of worms from underneath a bunch of red oak logs in my log pile there where I have some well-seasoned red oak. So let's get our bait in the water, see if we can't catch a fish. If you like this shirt, we've got them available on our merch shelf from Teespring. Just scroll down a little bit below the video. Let's get our bait in the water. I'm going to try to cast right to where that underwater cave is, where it opens up. Didn't go out as far as I wanted it to. And I'm sure there's fish there too, but I know where the sweet spot is. I want to get to the sweet spot. Well, it's a little better. Let's just try it right there. Make sure my bait sinks all the way to the bottom and reel in any excess slack. Oh, I'm getting hit already. Oh, I got one. Oh, it's a little whatever it is. Looks like a bluegill. I do have a story to tell you guys, but I'm afraid the fish are going to be biting so good today, I'm not going to be able to tell it. But here's our first one, a little bluegill. Throw them back in for her or it, but definitely not a they because there's only one. I'm going to use the same worm. Still got my bait. No harm, no foul. I need to get a little bit further out there though where them big fat cats are. There we go, that's a little bit better. You know, I haven't casted from this reel. Shoot, I haven't been fishing since last October. No, I think we came down here once earlier in the spring. It's been a few months. Letting it sink to the bottom. And get the excess line out. Now, oh, shoot, I'm getting a bite already. Oh, this is not a bluegill. Oh, boys. Did I tell you this is the best fishing hole I know of? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, big old fat catfish. Oh. Oh, look at that. That big old fat catfish. Oh yeah. It's a blue cat. It's a blue cat. What a beauty. This one is a she. She's pregnant. I love to practice catch and release. Hey, I love eating fish, and I can get them down there at the fish counter at Kroger. They already dead. This one, going to have some babies. So I'm going to put her back in. Here she's talking. She's saying, don't eat me. Don't worry, girl. I'm not. Look at that. Isn't she pretty? Isn't she beautiful? There, she's back in. Guys, I got so many stories to tell you about this place, and they're motivational. If these fish will just stop biting, I'll get to telling them. And this video, as you've seen so far, has not, for the time I casted the first, I have not edited, I have not stopped recording, I have not cut it. That's what it's like. Now listen, I used to fish with an old boy. He'd still use that, and he'd still catch them off of there because this thing has not just the odor of worm now, but also the odor of fish, because we've caught two from it, and so it's going to be more attractive. But I'm gonna change bait, because that's just what I do. I'm afraid if they take it, I'm just going to miss the fish. So let me get another worm on, and we'll start again, huh? All right, we're good to go again. I misspoke. That was not a channel cat. That was a blue cat. Here in the Rivanna River, we have channel cats, blue cats, and mud cats. I read a book on the history of catfishing years ago because I used to be completely obsessed with it, and you can see why. When you got places like this, so beautiful, fish biting so good, as soon as your line settles at the bottom, you got one on the hook, you know. But it was very common, like a couple hundred years ago when they used to do commercial catfishing in the Mississippi River, to where you could go into the fish houses and these blue cats were over 200 pounds. Looked like sides of beef hanging from the rafters. They get huge. So let's try it again. All right. Gotta let it sink to the bottom. Here's some geese down there. All right, now we gotta get the excess slack out. There, see what I have a little bell on here. So if we get a hit, the bell will ring. So guys, I lived here many years ago. I moved to this area for the first time back in 1999, and I spent my first 8 years here as a financial planner. That's how I discovered this area. I grew up loving to fish, mostly trout fishing because I grew up in Appalachian, up in the mountains, fast running, cold, clear water. There wasn't a lot of catfish well, there was none. So I came down here back to the motherland of Virginia and got into catfishing, bass fishing, and just absolutely fell in love with it. So where I am right now, it's just maybe a 10-minute drive out of town. And what I used to do to motivate myself back when I was a stockbroker to hit my nut for the day, which by the time I got out of that business, it was $1,000 in gross commissions a day, which my payout was 35%. So it was like $350 a day. That's where I was. You know, there's different levels of production when you're in that industry. You're expected to meet them, you do, or you're gone. And I met mine. So here's how I would motivate. And this isn't the main story though. This is just one of the stories about this place. So one of the ways I would motivate myself to hit that nut every day, because I never really was into that job. I wasn't. But what I do is I would take my kayak. I had a little red one. I have a little blue Pelican down here now. Me, Dearly, and Daniel all have blue Pelicans. I used to have a red Pelican. I'd strap it to the top of my car. I drove a Ford Taurus back then. And I would park it outside my office window, and I would stare at it in the morning starting to work. And I would say to myself, okay, oh, I'm getting a bite. It didn't ring the bell, but the line just dropped in slack. That means they're bringing it into the bank on me here. They're coming towards me. Instead of taking it and running away, they're coming in on me. So I'd tell myself, as soon as I gross $1,000 in commissions for the day, I'm going to go up here and go catfishing the rest of the day until the stock market closed, and then go home. And that's what I did. And I got something here. It's another bluegill, looks like. What is this? Yep. Another bluegill. All right, so that's one story. The best is yet to come, though. But that motivated me, because I've never been motivated by money. Money has never been, nor will it ever be, my God. So in order to make the money that the partners wanted me to do, I would use fishing as my motivator. All right, let me get him back, or her, or it, but it's not a they because there's only one. Get rebaited, and I'm going to tell you another story about this hole. I got 2 more to go. Well, 3 really. I got 3 more to go. Boy, those geese down there are screaming at something. Maybe it's me up here running my mouth. I lowered the camera a bit to hopefully give you a better view, make you feel like you're here fishing with me. Okay. See if we can go long enough without getting another bite to tell the other stories. First eel I ever caught in my life, I caught right here. And it was super creepy because I used to go night fishing here. I would come down here. I mean, I was consumed. I would get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and come down here with a lantern. This would be in the middle of summer, and that was so I could be here as the sun comes up at 5 o'clock here in Virginia in July. And I was down here fishing in the dark, and I had my Coleman lantern lit, and something took the bait. I hooked it. I was reeling it in, and it was fighting real funny. I'd never had anything fight like that before. And whatever it was, I had it close to the bank, and it just didn't want to come up. So I pulled real hard, and I guess I did that just as it was taking a rest. And this thing comes flying at me through the dark with its mouth open. Is an American eel. Google it if you've never seen one. Looked like a little dragon. It's the creepiest thing. I remember I dropped my pole and, dove out of the way. It was like, gross. Now, people eat those around here, and I guess everywhere. Eel in some places is considered a delicacy. So even though I practice catch and release 99% of the time I'm fishing, I decided I was going to keep that eel and take it home and eat it, because I'd never eaten eel. And I did. I took it home, I cleaned it out, fried it up in the pan, and it was disgusting. I've caught other eels since, and I've never kept any. I've never eaten any of them. So, another story very much worth telling. Had a little stick getting stuck on my line there. Okay, so, you know, I had another family in my previous life, and I used to bring my children here, my 2 daughters and my son. And my son Christian, who's now 26, and I think lives in England, I'm not sure, last known location. Long story, if you've been following, you know. If you haven't, then, well, go back and watch the previous 1,200 videos, or you could read some of my books. Available in the description box by way of link to Amazon, print, Kindle. So anyway, Christian and I used to come here alone, just me and him, and my daughters, Emily and Olivia. They would always get pissed because they always wanted to come too, but it was important to me to make time alone with each of the three at times. Sometimes I'd bring one of the other girls, and then the next one down here kayaking or fishing. But Christian never really liked fishing so much, but I kind of hoped maybe he'd get into it like I did when I was a kid. But there was a day that he came to love it, and it was right here at this spot. We came down here, and he had a Zebco 33. Anybody who's ever fished knows exactly what that is, because that was probably your first fishing pole and reel ever. You can buy them at Walmart or wherever as a combo for like $30. And he was about Daniel's age. The age Daniel is now, about 10. Maybe a little bit younger, might have been 8. So we were using chicken liver back then. I used to use chicken liver all the time when I go catfishing, because I didn't have a homestead. I lived in a subdivision. I was like a yuppie. I lived in a subdivision, and I wore a suit and tie to work every day, and I couldn't stand my life. But now, hey, man, I got my homestead out in the middle of nowhere. I wear t-shirts and shorts and a sun-drenched hat to work every day, and I love it. And when I go fishing, I just go out to my log yard where I've got some really well-seasoned red oak. I roll those logs over and pick up the worms that are underneath and bring them out here and go fishing. So we're using chicken liver, and Christian had his pole set up, and he could fish. He was good at it. He knew how to wait until the perfect time to, you know, tug if you're getting a strike, set the hook appropriately. So he's getting a bite, and it was just barely a tap, 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 tap. Tap, tap, tap. And I was thinking, well, no wonder this kid doesn't like fishing. All he ever catches are these little bluegills, right? Tap, 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 tap. Well, he picked up the pole, held the line, and I didn't need to tell him, you know, when to set the hook, because he knew. That thing went tap, 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 and then his pole, like, looked like it was going to break in half. I'm getting another bite. So he didn't even have to set the hook. Whatever was on the other end of that line set that hook for him. So he starts reeling and trying to pull it back and reel in, and line's just running out of his reel. I'm getting hit here. I think I missed this one, but that's okay, because we're at the climax of this story. I still got my bait. You know what it is? He, she, or it could feel me, you know, because I was more into the story than I was catching his fish. So he fought that thing, must have been 10 minutes. His pole was bent in half, and his line just kept screeching out of the reel. Ruined the reel. By the time he landed this fish, because those Zebco 33s, all the gears in there are plastic, it just stripped all the gears out of there. He pulled in a catfish, a big channel catfish that was probably this long. I kid you not, 3 feet long. And I remember grabbing it. When we finally got it up on the bank, my fingers could not touch each other around the sides. This thing, it was huge. It was a 20-pound catfish. And what I will say is that that day, my son Christian fell in love with fishing. All right, guys, I threw my worm off with that last cast, so I rebaited here. And I'm going to cast a little bit downstream because the sun's going down and it shifted the shade. And I like to cast on the edge of the shade in the sun. The fish will shift and feed in different places according to any little change. All right, all right. I'm getting the slack out. All right, so final story. I hope this can motivate somebody. So we're going to fast forward now past all these happy fishing stories to what I always refer to as my down and out years in the Philippines, okay? I'd been in the Philippines for 4 or 5 years, had no money, was broke, had dearly. You know, my wife and our son Daniel was a little boy. He was 4 years old or so. He was the only one that really ate enough every day. She and I were going hungry most nights, making sure he could eat. And what was I doing? I was writing. You know, I was writing my silly stories, my short stories. I was working for some media publications. This is before I won the Yahoo Content Creator of the Year award. Hadn't hit pay dirt yet. You know, Dearly was working in her mom's convenience store all day for $2 a day. And you know what I never mentioned? While she worked there all day, her and Daniel got to eat all day. And they did. Well, you know what she did with her $2 that she earned every day? She would go to McDonald's and buy me a cheeseburger and bring it home, and that was my dinner. And I would be at home writing all day. And so, you know, things weren't working out. I wasn't getting published. I was self-publishing like I do today, but I didn't have an audience. You know, I didn't have a YouTube channel with 250,000 followers. I had nothing. And you guys who actually buy my books from that link, you will never know how much I appreciate you. I'm only here right now on this bank fishing, telling you the story because of you. And those of you that take the time to watch my videos. But those of you who support my writing career, you will never know how much you are appreciated. So I'm writing, but in the evenings, sometimes I'd get down, sometimes I'd get depressed. And I would go online and I would go to Google Earth, where you can like look up anywhere on the planet, right? I would look up this fishing hole on Google Earth and I would zoom in as close as I could get. And I would sit there and I would cry because I believed in my heart I would never, ever, ever see this place again. I'd never be sitting here on this riverbank with a fishing pole catching, you know, fish like you've seen already in this video. And after I did that 2 or 3 times, I said to myself, you know what? Maybe you should stop doing that. Maybe you should stop going to Google Earth and looking up your old favorite fishing hole and crying and remembering, you know, your other kids that you, to this day, have not seen or heard from in more than a decade. Maybe you shouldn't be remembering those big fat catfish and maybe that funny night when you caught that eel. But then I said, no, let's go Google Earth that spot every effing day and figure out a way to get back on that bank. Long story short, that's what happened. Never gave up. Continued to write. Continued to send out my stories to people who didn't want them, you know, and continued to get robbed by publishers who would take them and say, well, yeah, we'd love to publish your story in these big major publications. That'd be great. So what do I get paid? And well, we're not going to pay you, but you should feel fortunate to be published with us because everybody knows who we are. So this will bring you fame and fortune just from being part of our, and I was so desperate and had no other options. I'd take those jokers up, but Dearly continued to support me. Dearly, you know, it's funny. One morning, this is the morning I quit. This is the morning I decided not to write anymore, to just stop, to just give up. I woke up and I told her, I said, I'm done. I said, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to go back to the U.S. I'm going to sign up for every entitlement program I can get on. Okay, we're going to go, I mean, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here to anyone, okay, and I'm not judging anyone. I'm just telling you about the conversation I had with my wife. I said, I'm going to go home and get on welfare so I can get you and Daniel to the U.S. because this isn't working. This whole writing thing just isn't working. I'm done. I quit. And she started crying, and she left the bed, and she left the room. And a few minutes later, she brought me my coffee. I sat up. I started drinking my coffee. Once I woke up, you know, a little bit, I got online. I opened, you know, my email. And I had an email from Yahoo. And it said, congratulations. Your short story, You've Come a Long Way, Soldier, has been one of 5 out of 12 million stories submitted to us that was chosen to win the Yahoo Content of the Year award. You got $1,000, and you know we're going to make sure the story goes viral and blah blah blah. At $1,000 back then, which was it's like 50,000 pesos in the Philippines now. Back then the dollar was only worth 37, so it was 37,000. It was more money than I made in 6 months. And the phone started ringing off the hook. Mainstream media personalities that most of you watching this video right now have seen on television were contacting me in the Philippines, offering me jobs. And the rest is history. A year later, I was able to come back, spend 6 months here alone, processing all the paperwork to bring Dearly here legally with the visa. Went back to the Philippines and spent 6 months in Manila, waiting on everything to get approved so that the day the embassy gave us her visa and the passports and all that, we could get on the next plane out, which is what we did. And within our first 10 days here in the United States, living here in the Charlottesville area, me and my beautiful bride Dearly and our wonderful son Daniel was right here on this bank catching these big fat catfish like you saw at the beginning of the video. It happened because we never gave up. We had a dream. We did what needed to do. Now, it's funny, I say we never gave up, and I tell the story of the day I gave up, but that was the day the miracle happened. We pushed, we just kept pushing, we just kept doing what we needed to do, and now, you know, you don't drown because you fall in water. If I go over here and fall off the bank because I catch that next big fat cat and he, she, or it pulls me in, I'm not going to drown if I fall in the water. But I'll drown if I stay there. Listen, if you're in the water, you're treading water, you're tired, figure out a way to get out of the water, brah. Oh, I got a bite. All right, guys. I cannot tell a lie. The big one got away. That's why I cut the video. But we have an even better ending for the video here. Let me flip the camera and zoom in. This is beautiful. Look at what I'm sitting here looking at. It's my pole, the river. Look up there. Hot air balloon. No matter how lofty your goal, believe, work, achieve.